It's time for this week's RSPW Rewind. I thought this week I'd serve up a medley of different posts dating back 20 years to the year 2000. Remember that bit from Conan O'Brien? In the year 2000! In the year 2000! Anyway, let's jump all the way back to February 12th, 2000, in a post by The Punk, talking about Kurt Angle's finishing move. Kurt Angle was still a newbie to the company at the time. He had only made his debut at the Survivor Series a few months earlier. He says, Angle's finisher, that weak-looking fall-away slam, doesn't have any flair to it. It should be replaced with something a little more spectacular. I was thinking a fisherman suplex, like the kind Mr. Perfect used, or maybe a figure four leg lock. Anybody have other ideas? Yes, because when I think of a spectacular move, I think of a fisherman suplex. Why is it even called a fisherman suplex anyway? I've never seen any fishermen suplex people like that before. Unless the idea is that you're hooking your opponent's leg before you do it, like you'd hook a fish. But that just sounds dumb. Crazy Joe Dudley, not to be confused with Crazy Joe Davola, suggests a much better move. How about a burning hammer, he asks. I can still remember gasping when I saw Brian Kendrick hit a burning hammer on Kota Ibushi in the Cruiserweight Classic, and Daniel Bryan is just freaking out on commentary. Scott says, this is not my idea, and I feel bad I can't remember who said it, but Kurt's finisher should be 3 German suplexes like Benoit is famous for, and he should call it the 3 Eyes. Sorry for stealing that from whomever thought of it, but it is pure genius. It was Scott Keith, by the way. One Scott giving props to another. And Blitzer311 wins the thread with this. Angle should have 3 finishers, the right angle, the obtuse angle, and the perpendicular angle. Damn, I hate math. Storm Rider ruins the fun, though. He says a right angle and a perpendicular angle are the same thing. Maybe you mean obtuse and acute? So there's Professor Storm Rider with the correction. Executioner1 says, Kurt's fallaway slam is a decent move, but it lacks as a finisher. I think that a submission hold would suit his talent the best, possibly a crossface chicken wing or a stump puller. How prescient of the Executioner to suggest a submission hold for Kurt Angle's finisher. June 21st, 2001, Not Eric says WWE released American Dragon and Joey Abs. Yes, they had Daniel Bryan under contract as far back as 2000. And they fired him the following year. This is when WWE made the decision to close down its developmental territory in Memphis. Some guys were going to be relocated to another territory in Cincinnati. Others were just going to be let go. And so one by one, they marched them into an office to meet with some person from talent relations, and Bryan was one of the ones who got let go. Which in hindsight turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to him, because if they don't fire him in 2001, then, you know, their plan was to possibly use him in their latest attempt at the time at a cruiserweight division, and he would have been dead in the water. If they kept him around to use him as a cruiserweight, that would have been it. He would have been dead. And we never would have gotten American Dragon, Ring of Honor World Champion Bryan Danielson, working with some of the best talent all over the world. But on RSPW at the time, people seemed more upset that Joey Abs got the boot, rather than Bryan Danielson. Drazik, the #1 sick boy, says, oh, for fuck's sake. Abs was one of the most underused guys on the roster. They wasted his effing time and hours while we were waiting for his repackaging. I feel sick. The promotion killer says, you feel your time was wasted while you waited for a member of the Mean Street Posse to be repackaged, and now you feel sick? Man, that's not right. Eddie Florick says, I can understand why they released American Dragon and Joey Abs. Dragon had some attitude problems, And Abs wasn't really improving, but it's still sad to see them go. American Dragon had a lot of potential too. That is, if he could learn to cut a promo. Ring skills alone will not cut it in WWE. Hopefully he'll go to Japan where his ring work will be appreciated. And Froggy in the Meadow Under the Log says, I love that name, Jason Arndt was more talented than 95% of the WWF roster. He's 100 times more talented than either of the other two, quote, workers who were part of the Mean Street Posse, but they get to keep their jobs because they're Shane O'Mac's friends. Jason Arndt, former Shotgun God and the guy who almost made Billy Gunn look good once on Heat. I hope you find a niche somewhere else. It should be noted that Rodney and Pete Gas were both let go that same year by WWE, so even Shane O'Mac apparently only had so much pull back then. It's too bad we never got to see Rodney with his new gimmick on TV. For a while, he wound up in developmental working under the name Rod Rageous. That was the name that he was using, Rod Rageous. I think it was down in the Memphis territory. June 29th, 2002, Horatio P. Dirt with a post titled, Yes, NWA signs Chris Daniels. Says, I haven't heard this talked about much on this news group, but I hear that NWA recently signed Christopher Daniels, one of the best cruiserweights in independent wrestling. This is a great sign that the NWA is recognizing the X Division as one of its main strengths and is willing to properly expand it. This is a style of pro wrestling that is very entertaining and interesting to watch, and that the WWE, for whatever reason, seems unwilling to promote. I will buy the NWA regularly if they feature lots of great X Division matches. They should get Sabu, Elix Skipper, Mike Modest, and Super Crazy next. Deathlar responds, Wonderful! Can't wait to see him jerking the curtain during his tenure, after which he will come back to Japan and be Curryman again. By the way, is America ready for the Curryman gimmick? Travman864 says, We need Curryman here. Too bad the gimmick will just go whoosh right over most casual fans' heads. Crossface Walls says, Come on, Chris Daniels is so 2001. Don't you know that the Supermarks, or Super Smarks, cream their shorts for Low Key or American Dragon now? And Ripclaw says, I think it's half love Low-key, half think that he's just a careless, no-caring SOB who kicks too hard, and American Dragon is loved. Well, American Dragon is loved. He got that part right 18 years ago. July 7th, 2002, another post by Horatio P. Dirt, this one titled, That New Ring of Honor Show Sounds Awesome. I've read a few reviews about the latest Ring of Honor show, and I am seriously considering ordering the video instead of this month's WWE pay-per-view. I hear there are just a ton of awesome work rate matches with a lot of the best stars from the current independent scene. I have to say that I have really lost faith in the WWE lately, due in great part to their philosophy of apparently only having one generic wrestling style for all of their matches. Unfortunately, this prevents them from promoting the fast-paced WCW cruiserweight style that I think is entertaining. I was hoping WWE would get a clue that stuff like Ring of Honor is probably the future of pro wrestling. But whoever makes the decisions there apparently disagrees. At any rate, as a fan, I am shifting my loyalty towards Ring of Honor. Being that Ring of Honor is more based on matches and less on storylines, I think that even being a promotion that one day could exist, promoting monthly pay-per-views without regular television, once it gains enough of a following. So he's saying that Ring of Honor could be that promotion, that one day will have the big monthly shows, even if they don't have TV, but they need to build up their following a little bit more. What's interesting about what he said in that post is he mentioned that the Ring of Honor style he sees as being the future. That's where the future of wrestling is going to be. That's where things are headed. WWE is just being very slow to catch up. It turns out he was 100% right. That's all WWE is now. They have basically taken that style that we used to see in Ring of Honor, that Ring of Honor became popular for, with the smaller performers and the constant kickouts of finishing moves and all that kind of stuff. All of that has been basically, it's migrated over, for better or worse, to WWE. So he wasn't wrong when he said that this style is the future of wrestling. He was actually right on the money. Jeff says, another federation for Vince to crush. Who is a part of this Ring of Honor? Griffin801 says, I purchased videos of the first 2 ROH shows and have ordered the next 2. I was very impressed by the wrestling skills displayed, and it was good to see some familiar faces alongside some new ones. I hope the new Fed continues and prospers. And Joey Image says, all of Rob's shows are great. Vince won't crush ROH. I know Rob. He's a fighter, and he won't give up. And then he gives the URL here in this post for the Ring of Honor website and calls it an exceptional alternative to the WWF. He wasn't wrong. Again, WWE clearly saw it the same way because they ended up poaching a lot of their stars from Ring of Honor, and with NXT now basically created their own version of Ring of Honor. Triple H created his own indie promotion. And that's one of the reasons I think that Ring of Honor has sort of stagnated over the years. You know, what once set them apart from WWE is no longer unique to them. WWE, they've hoarded a lot of talent that might have gone to Ring of Honor, and now you have AEW. You've got New Japan is more popular here in the US than it used to be. There's so much great wrestling out there. Ring of Honor needs to figure out what sets it apart from everybody else, because what once made them unique, they don't have that anymore. And the Rob that he is referring to in that post is Rob Feinstein, who owned Ring of Honor. He was ousted in 2004 after he got caught in a sting operation going to the home of an underage boy. You know, maybe they were going to play Dungeons and Dragons with Big Show, who knows. Feinstein has claimed in the years since that there was a lot of backstage drama going on at the time in Ring of Honor, and he was set up. He was set up to take the fall. And that's his version of events. And one last post that ties in with the American Dragon one from 2001. This one moves the timeline ahead all the way to September 5th, 2009. Danielson and McGuinness. How far will they get in WWE? Bryan and Nigel had both left Ring of Honor, and they had signed with WWE at the same time. It was a huge blow to Ring of Honor, losing Danielson and McGuinness at the same time. This was in the summer of 2009. And RSPW Live had this to say about that. I haven't been following the wrestling news much lately, but I was surprised WWE brought in both Danielson and McGuinness so quickly. I noticed you all are already predicting that neither one will stay long in WWE. My question is, how far will they get in the company during their time there? I think the most likely answer is either man never having a regular place on the Raw, SmackDown, or ECW rosters, or I think they may be used as a lower to mid-card tag team. Kind of like Heart Foundation 2.0. This is an example of one of the main things I can barely stand about wrestling anymore. You know Danielson and McGuinness both would have been huge deals back in the days of WWE against WCW. Okay, maybe in WCW they still would have been lower to mid-card, but a point would have been made to sign them and get them right on TV. Back then, I think WWE would have gone wild trying to get them over as stars. A lot of the fun back then was hearing about an ECW star getting signed by the big leagues and then watching them make their debut. It's frustrating to me as a fan to see independent / small company wrestling producing wrestlers that may be the most innovative in the ring ever, and WWE barely showcasing them. Of course, the exception seems to be CM Punk, and I really have no idea why. JC Gilbert says, actually, WWE was wise to sign them both. Bryan Danielson was trained by Shawn Michaels and previously was used as a rent-a-jobber for TV in a squash a few years ago. I see him going to SmackDown, where a feud with CM Punk would be a natural. The Anaconda Vice, Punk's original finisher, is making a comeback at Breaking Point. Match it with Danielson's cattle mutilation, and I think you'll get a phenomenal match. Nigel McGuinness, though, is bound for ECW, I think. He's a better fit for William Regal's Ruthless Roundtable than someone like, for example, Ezekiel Jackson, the lone American in the group. I think both men will end up winning titles in WWE. Also, some of WWE's frontline main event talents are getting long in the tooth. Triple H just turned 40, Shawn Michaels is 44, Undertaker is 40-something as well, Chris Jericho isn't that far off, John Cena's in his 30s, Randy Orton is not yet 30, I think. A gradual transition phase is in order, but it just becomes a matter of how soon Vince realizes the need to take that step. Of course, I love the fact that I've got this post to read in a week where they had Bill Goldberg win the championship by beating The Fiend, and The Undertaker pinned AJ Styles in 20 seconds, and Brock Lesnar pinned Ricochet without him getting a single offensive move off in 90 seconds. I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. Unbelievable. Jason Todd says, neither of them will be in WWE in another 18 months. WWE is stuck right now having their guys wrestle a certain style. If the indie guys have to subsume their identities in order to work in that style, people will wonder, well, what's the big deal? Ergo, they don't get over, and Vince McMahon says, well, shit, these guys can't get over, and then boom, they're gone. And he makes a great point there. Nice name, too, Jason. He makes a great point because if you have guys that are very unique in the style that they wrestle, and you sign them, right? There's something about them that you liked. So you sign them, you bring them in, and you say, you can't do that. Don't do that anymore. Slow it down. Work the WWE style. Well, then what the fuck is so special about them? And I feel like they probably did do that with a lot of guys. You see it from time to time. You'll see somebody working on an independent show, and then they come to WWE, and it's like, is this the same person? What happened? Why does it feel so different? Why don't they feel as special? Because you have to conform to the way things are. And then they lose their uniqueness. So I think he actually makes a very good point in that respect. Raymond Daly shares a similar pessimism about their potential in WWE. Says neither man will ever make it to WWE proper. They will be kept in FCW and made to job there and bound to ridiculous contracts that forbid them from ever going back to Ring of Honor or moving to TNA. Vince only bought them to stop Ring of Honor from getting ratings. Can you not smell the fear? And finally, Griffin801 adds to the despair. He says, McMahon just doesn't support or push wrestlers that he did not originate and develop. So I'm afraid both these great talents will shortly be buried. Too damn bad, but no surprise. I hope they both get some good money before they disappear. Well, Nigel McGuinness had the issues with the biceps, where they signed him, or were about to, whatever, and then he had his medicals done and they said, well, we can't sign you. And that was a real blow for him. He ended up going to TNA, but that was a really shitty thing that ended up happening to him. Of course, it's worth mentioning that a decade later, Daniel Bryan is one of the top stars in the company. He once headlined WrestleMania and became the champion. Nigel McGuinness, he's arguably one of the best announcers in the company right now. And both of them are on television and are visible pretty much every single week. So I'm happy to say that Griffin801 was wrong in his assessment of their future. He was incorrect. This has been your weekly reminder that sometimes WWE gets it right, even when they bring in people who already got over in another promotion. Unless your name is EC3.